Hi, Harry. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
How's it going? We were just talking about you.
Uh-oh. Well, I hope it's good.
It's always good.
Absolutely, superhero. Absolutely.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Wonderful to hear you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh, thank you for coming on. You are, wait until you see. And I kept, when I was doing this map, Harry, I kept thinking, oh, wait till Harry sees this. Wait until Harry sees this, because I did with Tracy Epps. I did what's called forensic astrology. And I did a map. And you do the astrology chart, and then it's all math. But wait until you see where the lines went. So where searchers should go look for Tracy.
Wow. That's interesting. I can't wait to figure that out. That's cool.
Yeah, it's so interesting. What's the park called, Sheri Lynn?
Bryan Park.
Oh, Bryant Park. Okay.
Bryant Park, and then right off of the interstate. It's right by a hoop. It's by a hoop. What's it? Where's it by, Sheri? It's a hoop. It's right down, it's west of the hotel. And it's on the interstate route, 64?
Yeah, off 64.
64. And it's right before you go to like a loop. But it's really a neat map. Oh, you're not, are you on Facebook too?
Yeah. 11 minutes until showtime.
Harry?
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
Okay, so I'll have Sheri Lynn text this to him so he can pull it up on his phone. Because it's pretty cool to see. I think it's cool. I think you'll be like, are you kidding? This is so cool. But I love this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on too. We love it. You're such a treat with your insight. You are.
Well, I truly appreciate that. Thank you. This is great. I always enjoy doing this. So thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. Do you remember when the last time you were on with Brandon's mom?
Yes.
Okay. Guess what? Good news.
10 minutes until showtime.
She is going in front of City Council in May.
Oh, all right.
Isn't that so? I thought that is wonderful, wonderful news.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. That case with Patricia is a tough case, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of, there's a lot of missing pieces. I've read what I can find over there since I talked to Sheri. I'm sure that the Hanover Sheriff's Department has more information than they've put out there, but there's just a lot of stuff that I would like to know if I was actually looking into this thing. Again, they're only going to release so much, but again, it's from 1980, so I don't know why they would be holding on to anything from that long ago. But like I say, I'm sure there's a lot of things that they know that we don't. But
9 minutes until showtime.
Sorry about that.
There were a couple of questions. There were a couple of questions that I would have. I think one of the first ones would be, was there any evidence of any accelerant, what started the fire? And, did the fire start before she was killed, or the burning of her body start the forest fire? A lot of those kind of things. And I'd also like to know stuff like, what was she doing at the Sunoco? Did anybody see her? I mean, who saw her at the Sunoco? Did she meet anybody? Did she make any phone calls? Did she know anybody else in the area? And it just kind of goes on from there. But like I say, I'm sure the Sheriff's Department knows all these things.
Well, did anybody ever see her? Did they see her leave the Sunoco? Which way did she go?
Right, exactly. And I can't find any of that. Oh, anything else on it. So but like I say, I'm certain that the sheriff's department.
8 minutes until showtime.
I'm sure the sheriff's department would have that information. I can't imagine that they wouldn't. So there's lots of holes in this thing from what we have to go on at this point.
There's
Yeah.
a ton of holes on that one. I mean, Tracy Epps is pretty cut and dry. It's just kind of finding her. But Patricia
Yeah,
is.
the F case is pretty interesting. I find it interesting that, you know, that she disappeared 3 days before he goes over and gets shot by the police. That was sort of a red flag to me.
A big red flag. And then this girl called and said she was her neighbor. And she told me, she said, I know more than what I even need to know. And I'm like, really? But I called her Steve. She's like, please don't use my name. So I called her Steve. So I bet she texts me in the middle of the show because she did last week. She's like, no, they got it all wrong. He paid for her hotel room. They were always together. So it's like,
But
oh, okay. I got the map. That's pretty interesting. Looks like it's right there, broad and west.
yeah, now that's where the
Yeah.
that's where that extended stay is. But if you follow one of the lines out, it goes right out to Bryan Park. It goes
Yeah.
that back road, the back way.
Extending out from the pin. Is that the way this thing works?
yeah, the pin is the hotel
Right.
because that's where she
And so
was.
What are the lines indicate?
Well, each of those lines indicate a certain planet. So, for example, Saturn is Saturn is one of the lines. Pluto is a line.
6 minutes until showtime.
And then it'll give you like a little wedge. She is represented on an astrology chart by, let's see, who's she represented? Capricorn. So she's Saturn. So she was, I mean, and the chart tells you a story as well. You can even see when they were in the car because we don't have a good timestamp for her. Because we don't know what time he took her to the car. We
Yeah,
have
this is news to me, Harry, finding some of this other info out.
4 a.m. And that's because the what's her name? The girl that was kind of like the tipster. She said, well, he took her out to the car at 4 a.m. He put something, yeah, so people saw him
5
at the
minutes
hotel
until showtime.
So I think so I used 4 a.m. and I used 5 a.m. But if I had like the camera stamp.
Hello to Stacy Foley. She's watching us live. We are live on YouTube. Yep.
All right.
So we're just waiting for
I
Blog
think
Talk
that's
to-
very interesting.
Mhm.
Oh, so we're live on YouTube.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's okay. I know. I told
So
you.
Harry,
some stuff. You can call me Steve all day long.
yeah.
4 minutes until showtime.
Harry, what else is new? Thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, everything's pretty good in my world. You know, just do my thing and have a good time doing whatever it may be. So it's always good to talk to you ladies, and always good to hear from Sheri. So,
Oh, I know. We do go way back. You're my superhero. You have been for a long time.
Feel free to spread that rumor every chance.
I'm writing it everywhere I can find it. So if I get
What's-
told graffiti, you'll know who did it.
What's new at the Museum of Fine Arts?
Well, we're getting ready to expand again. We're already the 10th largest museum in the country, and we're getting ready to spend, I don't know, 100 million or so to expand even further. So
3 minutes until showtime.
All around the city. So pretty soon it's going to be, welcome to Richmond, owned and operated by the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. So it's a lot to keep track of, but it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of cool stuff going on there.
So what exhibit is going on now? Anything exciting?
It's called American Painters in Europe, and so it's all these really. This is a beautiful exhibit. I mean, this is really pretty exciting. I don't really get into a lot of the stuff that goes down there, but this is very. It's like Whistler and all these great American Rockwell, all these great American painters that have been painting in Europe, and it's already been very, very well received. The New York Times wrote us up and said that if anybody's interested in art, this is the one exhibition you should see this year if you don't see anything else. So we're having people coming in from all over the place to see it. So it's good.
Oh, that's amazing.
Now I got
minutes until showtime.
I got a question to ask you, Harry. Did I read right? Is Rick Cousins out there working with you?
Well, he's there. He doesn't do anything.
I'm not telling you that.
I'll tell him I said it. He knows very well what I think of Rick. Rick and I knew each other in the police department when he was with Richmond. I was with Henrico, and we were both hostage negotiators. He for the city and me for the county, and we would do joint training sessions and things like that. So I knew Rick before I got down there, and Rick's a great guy. He was a director of security, and he has since moved out of that, and he's now a part-time employee. He does training for the security people and things like that.
Yeah, he was at Richmond, and then came out to Ashland.
Yep. Chief of
1 minute until showtime.
Plus, it's hard he had to deal with when we had the DC sniper stuff going on.
Yes, he did. He sure did.
Man,
Rick's a good guy. We beat each other up a lot. We're pretty good buddies.
He's a good egg. He's a good egg. Y'all are both good eggs. But you're a superhero, so. Sorry, Rick. Sorry, Rick, if you're listening.
She keeps saying you're a superhero. I said, well, he's our expert.
Well, if you say it long enough, people will believe it.
Well, you're our expert. You're our you are. But
I will give you what insights I may have.
I don't know why it's not able to share.
It wasn't able to share on Facebook last night either.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds.
Okay.
4, 3, 2, 1. Love Talk Radio.
It's showtime, folks! Welcome to the Ret'd Radio Podcast Network, right here on Blog Talk Radio, with shows 6 days a week. Saturdays set aside for special events and recreation. Join us as we produce the best on the net today. Be a part of the recreation. Network intro by Robert Smith. Find Robert Smith music today on Facebook and on YouTube. And now your featured show.
Charming, grand, elegant, and memorable are words guests use to describe Belgrove Plantation Bed and Breakfast, located along the banks of the Rappahannock River in King George County, Virginia. Built in 1791, Belgrove Plantation was the birthplace of our 4th president and founding father, James Madison. This historic mansion features 4 luxurious master suites with views overlooking the Rappahannock River and Plantation. Spacious accommodations, fresh air, and breathtaking sunset views of the river and plantation await you. Whether you're looking for the perfect location for your wedding, anniversary, corporate retreat, seminar, or romantic getaway, Belle Grove Plantation provides a year-round destination with unique venues and events. For more information on reservations, date availability, events, and scheduled tours, visit our website at www.bellegroveplantation.com or call 540-621-7340. Again, that's 540-621-7340.
Welcome to True Crimes, Mysteries Behind the Veil. And now your host of the evening, Joni Templeton, Christy Goins, and co-hosting Sheri Lynn.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of True Crimes, Mysteries Beyond the Veil. We are streaming live tonight, the Rift Radio Network, and on Blog Talk Radio, as well as streaming on YouTube for the first time on the Rift Radio Network. Thanks to Sheri Lynn and all of her technical work. We are streaming live on YouTube. So I'm excited about that. How are you tonight, Miss Sheri Lynn?
I am doing good. Doing good. And I think we got it straight where we can share it on Facebook now, too.
Yeah, hopefully there's no echo. Hopefully we have the echo thing straightened out, but it's a work in progress, right? Work in progress. Yeah. But tonight we have part 2 of our series that began last week with part 1, Missing in Virginia, where Sheri Lynn came up with some local missing persons and a cold case homicide from back in the 1980s. And we reviewed those cases. And tonight we have our expert. He is the true crime detective, law enforcement expert. He works for security for the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. We have had him on our show. We adore him. He is a superhero. He is retired law enforcement. He's an author. Let's see, Sheri Lynn. He's an author. He is a musician.
He's a superhero. He's a...
Boyd. How are you, Harry?
Thank you. I am wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much for those accolades. I'm not used to hearing that so much, so I'm going to record this so I can just keep playing it back.
Yeah. I mean, you are. I mean, every time we have had you on the show, I mean, you're a wonderful expert. It's wonderful. Everybody loves to hear when you're coming on because of the expertise that you lend with the cold cases and just that added touch of the things that in true crime, we don't know what law enforcement goes through. And it's so nice to have your touch and your insight. It's amazing. So thank you so much for coming on. And this is in your area as well. The 2 cases in Virginia. So our first case, which we talked about her last week, she went missing in March of 2022, just recently. And Tracy Epps was last seen at the suites. What is that like a Marriott, Sheri Lynn? Is it Wood Spring Suites? Is it like a Marriott or an extended stay type of a hotel?
Extended stay location.
Extended stay location.
Yeah.
And what happened is her husband went onto a stranger's porch, apparently, was waving a pistol. Police told him to put the pistol down, and Harry, you can tell us more about this. And they continued to tell him to put his pistol down. He was apparently shot, and he died from the shot, from being shot. So then they were trying to find his next of kin, and they went to the suites. Tracy has not been seen or heard from since the beginning of March of 2022. Her family came out a couple weeks ago and said that there was camera footage of him taking a cart and something, and it was placed in the trunk of his car. That's it. There are no other clues and no other information. So, Harry, can you add some insight into the Tracy Epps disappearance?
Well, it's an interesting situation. I understand it's sort of estranged, at least to a degree. What I find interesting is that she disappeared. I think it was 3 days before he ended up going quite a distance away, down into the city, and evidently ended up on the front porch of someone who did not know him with a weapon. And so this person called 911, and the police arrived. And from what I understand, he was told on multiple occasions to drop the weapon, to put the weapon down, and evidently he made a move towards either pointing at the police officer or made a move that they took as a life-threatening situation towards themselves, and they used what force they thought was necessary to stop the threat, and he ended up being killed. So that's an unfortunate circumstance. However, in the business, we sometimes refer to that as suicide by cop. I've actually been involved in a couple of those. I had someone who attempted to get me to shoot him under very, very similar circumstances. I did not, and we were able to get the weapon away from him. He actually ended up committing suicide himself several weeks later. But those situations, I mean, if you point a weapon at a police officer, they're going to do whatever they think they need to do to protect themselves and to protect the general public. And from what I understand, there was absolutely no question about the need for that to have taken place. So those officers did what they were trained to do. But I find it interesting that she disappeared, and 3 days later he's not, for no reason that they can determine, on the front porch. This person had no idea who he was, and then ended up being he ended up being killed.
Yeah, and it's in the area of Fulton Hill. And Fulton Hill is not. It's where he was shot by Richmond City. See, she was in Henrico at the extended stay. He ended up in Richmond and Fulton Hill is not exactly your Mayberry neighborhood. To put it nicely.
So he ended up at on a stranger's front porch, apparently waving a pistol around that frightened them. And does anybody know if he had relatives in that area, or he just ended up in that? Do we even know any of that?
I only caught one. I caught one news article, and there was a lady that was saying she lived next door, and she could hear gunfire going on, and she called the police, and they hung up because the police were already there, and she was speaking on air saying that his gun had misfired, but he had it aimed at the police officers, and that's why they did shoot him.
Well, sure.
But
so he had a couple of days to have taken her anywhere before. I mean, there were 3 to 4 days before from the time frame when she was seen last until the time he was on the porch. was a couple of days that he could have taken her anywhere. I mean, what do the police do, Harry? I mean, how do you even go around and get clues or information on something like that?
Well, the first thing they would have done, first of all, somebody would have had to report her missing. I'm assuming that once the police went to what the procedure is, if he was shot in the city. So they would have had a city officer contact Henrico, and then a city officer and a Henrico officer would have gone, or officers would have gone to see if they could locate her. If they couldn't locate her, I mean, that's really, in and of itself, that's really nothing unusual. So what they would have had to have done, someone would have to have given them some information that it was suspicious that she was missing or not there. So what they would have probably done was check with the neighbors, check with the office, the management, to see if there was any, if they could locate her. And if anybody gave them any indication of that she did not leave under her own power, they would have checked the closed circuit cameras and see what they could have found from that point.
And well, in her workplace too, she worked at Owens and Miners for a long period of time, so she didn't appear for work either.
So she didn't appear for work, and then go ahead, Harry. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say, and I'm certain that they would have spoken to her coworkers and to her, to her management at Owens and Minor, if that's where she worked, to see if they could get any insight on where she might have gone or when she was last seen and that type of thing.
So do you think they went around the area where the suites, where the hotel was, and checked the cameras there to see? Because, I mean, where would you even start to look as law enforcement? And I know we always want law enforcement to do things quickly and to find people. But if they have very few leads to go on, what do you all do? I mean, if they said, well, we saw him drive away with her, then what exactly where does a case go from there?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. First of all, it's not, people don't miss it all the time, and it's assumed that adults can do that. And so just the fact that she wasn't there would not have raised any red flags. They would have had to have some information that she was someone saw her being forced into a car, or that there was some history, or that something odd and strange may have taken place before they would have even begun a search. Once they established that there was some possibility of foul play, if you will, then they would have begun looking for video. The embassy suites would have had cameras. Any of the businesses in the general area, or across the street, and those type of things, they would have checked all those to see if anything would have come up. Then they would have talked to her neighbors, the management at the hotel, people like coworkers, any relatives that they could get in touch with, and see if there was anywhere that she may have been, or if she had a history of doing this kind of thing. Because a lot of people just disappear for no reason, and then they show back up. So they would have checked to see if there was any record of her being arrested. They would have checked to see if there was any record of her having been reported missing on prior occasions. They would have checked her cell phone records. If they could have gotten, they could certainly do that. Relies on whatever the carrier is. They would check her cell phone to see what was going on with that, to get any idea. So there were a number of things he did, but these things would not have happened on the spur of the moment. They wouldn't have happened right away. Again, it's not illegal not to be where you're expected to be unless you've got some information that leads us to believe that there's something to this. So that would have had to have taken place. It had to have information to that effect before they actually started any kind of in-depth investigation.
I mean, we always want the law enforcement agencies to, oh my gosh, why aren't they searching? Hurry up, get out there and do this and that. But I think a lot of times we don't stop and think of the tedious little things that police really have to go through, and or detectives, to even get an idea of where someone even went missing. I mean, this could take days, if not weeks. And
yeah, exactly. And like I said, there's a privacy aspect to that too. You we just can't, law enforcement just can't begin checking on your background because, you're not there without any indication that there's something wrong. And so somebody had to have reported her missing in order to make the report, or there have been circumstances made clear to the police for them to initiate the investigation on their own. But just simply the fact that they show up and can't find her, nobody would have begun looking at that point, unless, like I say, unless there was something extraordinarily out of the ordinary. They would have said, okay, we can't find her, we'll check back later. And then they would have come back, and I don't know what happened with that. I'm not familiar with the specifics of that.
Yeah.
But if they couldn't have found her at the time, then they simply would have said, okay, we can't find her. We'll, let the management know we need to talk to her. And if she showed up, then the management would have called, or they would have, told her to call the police. So I'm not sure exactly what the time lag there was, but I'm pretty confident that they didn't start looking for her immediately.
So when do the red flags start to pop up? Just like during the course of an investigation, or like, for example, they saw the estranged husband or the husband ex taking something and putting it into his trunk off of the cameras. Well, that to me is like, red flag. But, and then but how would you even know? Do police actually even like drive around and kind of search the areas as well?
Well, what would happen was, and we used to do this all the time, especially with juveniles. You can't just have a habit of just not showing back up. Well, they just have a habit of disappearing.
Yeah, they do.
So we get calls. Got calls about that. And so rather than immediately declare them missing, and if it's an adult, the rule of thumb, and this is not a hard fast rule, but the rule of thumb is if you're an adult and you can't be found, and there's no evidence of any foul play, then it's about 24 hours before we start actually considering them to be missing. Because again, adults you can come and go when you get ready. You don't have to tell anybody if you don't want to. And so what we will do is if we got a call, and just in general, somebody says, yeah, my husband went to the grocery store. He was due back in 20 minutes. It's been 3 hours. I haven't seen him. Well, we're not going to immediately declare him missing. But what we're going to do is whoever the officer is going to take the information, and they're going to put out what we call an all-car. Well, that's what we call it in Henrico, an all-car broadcast with his description, with whatever information we have on the vehicle that he's driving, and we'll say, okay, was supposed to get back home in 20 minutes. He was going to the 7-Eleven. Nobody's heard from him. Be on the lookout. And so everybody would still be looking for him. However, they wouldn't start going and looking at the security camera footage and checking cell phones or any of that kind of thing. So we would, I'm certain that given the circumstances, that the word was put out to watch out for whatever vehicle or whatever, she may have been in if they had that information, or a description of her, what she may have been wearing if they could have had that. And if anybody saw them, saw her in passing or even drove the area and checked it, they would certainly have stopped and figured out what was going on with all that.
So is that kind of why they use, is it like a rule of thumb, like you should wait 48 hours, or is that like a departmental rule usually, or is that just kind of wait and see what happens? I mean, we hear that all the time. Well, you have to wait 48 hours.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was 24 hours. 1 hour in the business.
Oh, okay.
So you would give an adult roughly, and there was no hard medicine, but you give an adult roughly 24 hours to actually declare the missing and put them into NCIC, the National Criminal Information Center, into the computer, so that it goes nationwide if you're in NCIC as a missing person. And so before you do all that, the theory is in 24 hours to see if they're going to come back, unless there's evidence of foul play. Now, if they ain't got, if someone had gone to the 7-Eleven and was due back in 20 minutes and come back, all of a sudden they got a phone call from his phone, or someone else had called on his cell phone that wasn't him, anything like that would have raised a flag, and they would have immediately begun the process. But simply the fact that we didn't find anything when we went to look for them, it's not necessarily a red flag. to start the formal process of putting in all these specific databases and put out the nationwide lookout, with all missing persons going to the nationwide lookout. But they still would have been looking for her locally. They would have cars that have been looking for her, the officers that worked that area. The oncoming officers would have been made aware of the circumstances. They would have been looking in their general travel and to see if they came up with anything.
So if a family has a little one that goes missing, how does the Amber Alert differ, and what are the steps that are taken before an Amber Alert is issued for somebody?
Well, Amber Alert has to be an evidence of child in danger and endangerment. Okay, so it has to be evidence of someone who's abducted a child, or usually that's what it is. And most of the time, those things are parental abduction. One or the other non-custodial parent, someone before somebody has legal custody, the other parent, the man comes and takes the child, and that's what most Amber Alerts end up being. But there has to be information that the child has been abducted or is in some kind of serious danger. Otherwise, it would say it's a local thing. All juveniles, whether or not, up to the age of 18, would be considered of an immediate nature. So you wouldn't wait 24 hours to go to pull all the stops on a juvenile. Because that's an entirely different thing. But the Amber Alert, and of course that goes nationwide. I get them on my phone. Everybody, you can plug into the community app, and it's a very effective thing. Actually, it's a lot of missing children off the Amber Alert. But that's sort of a specific. It has to be clear evidence of endangerment.
Okay. Well, what we did, Sheri, can you do another slide, please, hon? And what we did, we use forensic astrology. And so a timestamp is very, very important when you're composing a map, what we call mapping from an astrology chart, a forensic astrology chart. So in Tracy's case, we did not have an exact timestamp, which would be the last time somebody saw her, a last cell phone, a last text, if she were caught on camera, what time the camera showed. And that really, when you have that information, it really, you can almost, one of the lines will actually take you to her. I mean, this is so amazingly accurate, forensic astrology. But you, like I said, you have to have that great timestamp. So I played around with a couple of timestamps with Tracy's disappearance because there had been some tips and information that at 4 a.m. he was seen going to his vehicle with a cart, a hotel cart, and something was on the cart and it was placed in his trunk. So I used the 4 a.m. time. This is the actual map that was composed when you use all the planets and the time and etc. and the math. So there are a couple of areas of interest that I feel that really need to be searched, and one of them is what is called Sheri Lynn Bryant Park, correct? And that's the area where you all are more familiar with Bryant Park.
Yeah.
And if you can look on the astrology map, it actually takes you to the exact road or the lane or whatever that trail is in Bryant Park where searchers should look. Now, like I said, I would be very positive with this if there were an accurate timestamp, but we had to just kind of play a guessing game for Bryant Park. But then there was also, can you go back to the blue one, Sheri? There was also another area over to the western part to go west from the hotel. Sheri, the next one, can you show that highway? And it is okay. There's the highway. Is that Highway 65?
64.
64. And if you, the map will actually shows on both sides of the highway. So I would definitely search the area right off the highway before you get to that circular ramp. I guess, is that a ramp or an on ramp?
Yeah, where it loops around, I think off of 295 to 64.
I don't, but those are two really good areas that I would search. Definitely. Those were areas of interest. And then would you show the other one, Sheri, the next one? And that's Bryant Park. And the next one. Okay, now the yellow one, I did it. The yellow one is the timestamp using 5 a.m. And what was very interesting that popped up on this actual chart is there are pins that I put around the actual pie or the astrology chart, and the pink pin where there's a line going up to it. Sheri Lynn said that there were kids at the cemetery.
Yeah, they were cleaning up at the Atley Recreation Center, cleaning up trash, and found.
That's the green one. That's the green pin. The pink one is the
you're talking about the cemetery. What was that? Several months ago, when they found a deceased person in the cemetery.
Right. So that line took right up to the cemetery.
Going out to clean up the cemetery, put flags out or something, and they found someone deceased.
They found some remains there. And then the green pin is actually, they located some remains just last week, and I guess you're waiting on identification on that one. So this particular chart pointed out, and Kirsty McIntosh, who's the best forensic astrologer in the world, always said with forensic astrology, it's like you can pull up a chart on somebody else's case, and lo and behold, they will come up with other people that have been missing in that area. The chart will pull them up as well. And then if you look over to the right, the yellow pin is where her estranged husband actually was on the porch. So we actually had a line going over to him as well. So that's when I knew the 4 and 5 time was probably pretty accurate, because the maps and the charts tell us so much about a crime. So I thought that was really interesting. So I thought that was cool. I think they need to check that park. And
here, you know it. I mean, Bryant Park has changed over the years. It's always had its different areas. Kind of, how do I want to word this? Family-friendly area in one area, and more adult themed recreation going on in other areas of Bryant Park.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Bryant Park it's a very cool place, actually. It's very large. And one of the interesting things about Bryant Park is that it's actually the Henrico County, Richmond City corporate line runs through the park. So the majority of the park is in the city of Richmond, but there is a section on the very back side up against the interstate that is in Henrico County. And there's a neighborhood that butts right up to the
that slam where she's talking about, that back road.
Yeah. Yeah, and we used to patrol that piece of the park. When I was on the mountain patrol, we used to ride our horses up in Bryant Park. And that particular area where the line ends, that's sort of There are houses back there, but they're very, you wouldn't know it unless, and you wouldn't know how to get to them. And, you know, it's not an easy place to get to unless you know where you're going.
Exactly.
So it's you know, and there's just a lot of woods there. There's a lot of brushy area, and it goes right up to the interstate, which is built up. So there's this large berm, if you will, or the ground is built up to the interstate, which is, you know, 40 feet above the ground level. So that's certainly a place that things could be dropped out of sight for a while.
And so he was from that area, apparently. I mean, it's very close. It's in close proximity to the hotel, so it's almost like you could just, it's like right there almost, isn't it?
It's not far. It's not on the interstate. You know, it's right off of the interstate. So, you know, from the hotel, 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah. Well, that would be a definite place I would check. Definitely. Do you have anything else you want to add on to Tracy's case, Harry? Anything else you can find interesting or think of?
No, there's some things I like to know. I would like to know why he was at this person's house that didn't know him, or at least he says they didn't know him. And you know, you always got to take these things with a grain of salt. Just because somebody tells you, I don't know who this guy is on my front porch, doesn't mean that he didn't know who he was. And usually, and again, I'm generalizing. This is a very great generalization here, but usually something like that, somebody on your front porch with a gun. And I've been on a few of those in my career. But usually, it's either, yeah, actually, I have, as a matter of fact. But it's usually either a domestic situation, it's either somebody's girlfriend's in there, somebody's boyfriend, somebody's husband, somebody's wife, is that they're messing around, and the other one finds out about it and takes exception, or it's some kind of drug thing. Somebody owes somebody money, somebody rip somebody off in a drug deal. And those type of situations.
I'm glad.
He didn't know. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you brought that up because he did have pending drug charges and was supposed to be appearing in court for drug charges.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah. Again, I don't know all the specifics, but I'm just going on generalizations. It's usually the domestic thing, or there's drugs involved, or there's some something personal between the people that are involved in that. It's not a random. You don't have to go show up on somebody's front porch with a gun and start making this. So.
I mean, I thought that was a little odd too, and it's funny because that one astrology line takes you really close to that front porch. And it's like Richmond's a fairly big city to just randomly end up at a front porch like that, right? I mean,
well, in that neighborhood of all neighborhoods, I don't think you would just randomly hop on anybody's front porch.
It was either that he knew who he was, he knew where he was going, and he knew what he was doing, and he knew who was in there, or that he got the wrong address. He got the information, and he was looking for somebody else who thought they were there, or that was the information he had on that was the place. That's the only way that I can see that he would have been there. He just got the wrong address, or whoever was in there actually knew what was going on and opted for their own personal reasons not to tell the police they knew what was happening and just decided to go with 911. And since he ended up being, since the gentleman ended up being, being killed, then who's going to know? We won't ever know.
Exactly.
For sure, while he was there.
Exactly. So, well, that's an interesting case. I hope that they find her soon. Hopefully these areas can be searched, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that she can be found. So
the other thing to point out too is where she was staying. That extended stay has got a big sign right at the entrance that says you are not allowed on the property unless you are a resident there or staying there. I would love to know where they have proof that he was paying for her to stay there when everybody, I spoke to one of her friends this past week who said she was running from him. And that's why they were estranged. And originally on the news footage, it said that she was last seen and heard from on the 3rd, and they saw her and heard her and knew she was alive on the 3rd. So how did he get in there, and who's got a receipt showing that he paid for anything? That still puzzles me, because I was even pestered by people that were hanging out in the parking lot while I was taking some pictures.
Well, and usually those hotels, you need the key fob, I mean, you can't really access and get in. And so and relationships get like that. I'm sure Harry can tell us that. How many times in estranged and domestic violence relationships are they seen together, Harry? How often does it? It's probably more common than we think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty common, actually, for a variety of reasons. But yeah, just because they were quote unquote estranged or had been divorced or whatever, that really, there are many instances where they'll get back together for specific purposes and do whatever it is they choose to do.
Right. Well, that was Sheri Lynn's first case. And Sheri Lynn, give us a brief scenario on Patricia's case. This is interesting too. This is a very interesting case.
Yeah. Well, Patricia Eve Gaugler went missing September 29th, 1980, and Hanover County, they're seeking a new break in this cold case. She was last seen at the Sunoco in Ashland, and she was last seen there. She was getting gas at the Sunoco. She was from Pottstown, Pennsylvania, coming to Richmond to stay with her brother. So that would make sense. The Sunoco you can see right off of 95 and jump out right off 95. It's en route to Richmond or en route, depending on where you're from. But the Sunoco is right next to the truck stop. Now, she was found several miles away. And by several miles away, I don't mean like 30 or 40. I mean like a 10-minute drive. If that. But you can go down. One way is which I thought was kind of freaky. Was you go down Route 666, and you can get to it that way. But at the time, it was a gravel trail, and it's now known as Wesley's Court, called Greenwood Church Road, and it was accessible by tractor trailers because that area was used for farming. And you had to know the area. This was not an area that you would drive to when you can see the interstate from the Sunoco and you're getting gas. And that's from what I understand, she was getting gas at the Sunoco. The question that that was at 3 o'clock that day. Within 5 to 6 hours later, he's found, her car is found on the gravel road, untouched. Nothing has happened to her vehicle. But she is found in the wooded area, off the road, and she's been murdered. And they determined that, and I'm never going to pronounce this medical terminology correctly, but I'll do what I can. They were battling a blaze in a wooded area a mile west of Virginia 657 and 666. The car was found on the dirt road near the area of the fire. Positive identification of the body was made by comparing her dental work with X-rays. They said that she died from upper airway burns due to immolation. Am I saying that right? No other wounds were found on the charred body. It was not determined whether she was conscious at the time of her death.
That's so, Harry. What are your thoughts on Patricia's case?
Yeah, that's very interesting. There are a lot of questions I have about that one. I'm sure the sheriff's department has a lot more information than is put out on any of this stuff. One of the very first things I would want to know is, number one, were her keys in the car or any personal belongings? Did she have a purse? Cell phones weren't really prevalent in 1980, so probably not a cell phone in there. But I'd like to know if there was anything, was a purse in there, was there clothes in there? She was moving to Richmond, and what else was in the vehicle? What I would really like to know, was there any accelerant noted? Okay, something started the fire. Now, did whoever killed her set her on fire to cover up the murder, and that set the woods on fire? Or were the woods set on fire and she just happened to be unconscious in that particular piece of the woods, and the fire from the forest fire, she died of smoke inhalation or upper respiratory burn because the woods were already on fire. Also, I would really like to know if what she was doing at Sunoco. Was she just getting gas?
Right.
Was anybody with her? Did she talk to anybody? Did she make any phone calls? Did her brother? Where was her brother? Anybody who reported her missing? Well, I guess the fire department found her, so there was really no report that she was missing.
Yeah, and her brother
was she on the way?
Her brother's been the one who's been pushing for this cold case to get reopened and get solved because it's been sitting idle for way too long. So the brother's really been pushing for this. But I'm like you. Where's the gas? Where's the gas can? Her car.
I mean, do you all have brush fires there? I mean, it's not like it's California, or does that happen often there? Like, where? I wouldn't think Richmond would be an area where, like, forest fires.
Is rural. This would have been incredibly rural.
I mean, in December.
And very contained. A very.
I think somebody said it. So what would? So you would? Where would you go from there, Harry? If this was a cold case, and how would in the world would you even? Where would you even start?
Well, first of all, I'm absolutely certain that the Hanover Sheriff's Department has a lot of this information that they're not giving out for whatever reason. It's just not conceivable to me that they would not have asked the same questions that I had just asked. I was with Henrico in 1980, and I had occasion to work with the Hanover Sheriff's Department on a number of occasions. They were incredibly professional agency, and still are. So I am certain that they've got information that they have not released for whatever reason. I'd like to know who reported the fire, for one thing.
Yep.
I'd like to know, again, what started the fire. Was it, and what time of year was this, Sheri?
September 29th.
Oh, I thought it was December, wasn't it? September.
September 29th.
Yeah.
And within a matter of hours, same day.
Yeah, so something started the fire. Now, I don't know whether, whether the suspect doused her in gasoline and set her on fire to cover the murder, and that set the woods on fire, or whether she was unconscious and just left in the woods. And then the woods caught on fire from some other reason, and she just happened to be in a piece of the woods that burned. So there are things I would like to know about that. But again, where would you go with that at this particular point?
Right.
This is so long ago, unless somebody came forward with some information that they had not talked to prior to that, I'd like to go back and find who was working at the Sunoco. That'd be the place I would start.
Right.
To see if you could find anybody that may have been working at the Sunoco at that time and find out if they saw anything at all, if they even remembered what would have happened. I'd also like to talk to the brother and
Yes.
find out if she had any enemies. I mean, that's who knows? Is she involved in drugs? Was she carrying drugs from Pennsylvania to Miami and decided to stop off in Richmond? That happens all the time. From New York to Richmond. Richmond is we used to call Interstate 95 a cocaine highway.
Really?
Because oh yeah, absolutely. And because they'd come into Miami with the stuff from South America and wherever, and then they drive it up 95 to New York or places further north to distribute it. So we were always getting cocaine back in the 80s off of 95. It was pretty much you could just pick a car and it probably had cocaine.
Wow, that's interesting.
That would be something that I would, that I'd like to know about as well.
And did
I'd
she have
also
a
be curious. I'd also be curious to know who showed up from the fire department to work.
Yeah, I'd like to know about the fire department as well.
And
I'd like to know, how they got the call. It was probably a volunteer back in those days, wasn't it?
yeah, I mean, most of it still is.
Yeah, we still have
And then-
volunteer fire.
And then there's and don't ask why, but I ran across the serial truck stop killer, Robert
Right.
Benjamin Rhodes, who is, they think is responsible for up to 300 deaths. And he had started doing this back in the 70s, and he was in Virginia, in the Ashland area. I just haven't been able to confirm if he was in Ashland during this time. But he would basically be a predator for anybody that was hitchhiking, if they looked like they were from out of town or lost, asking for directions, and that was it. That was all she wrote. And then he was dumping them in completely different states. I mean, it was just, and they had such a hard time catching him. And they didn't.
Yeah, well, that's certainly a possibility. But the thing about that, to me, was if he kidnapped her at the Sunoco and he drove her car, how did he get out of there? I mean, somebody would have to either pick him up or he'd have to have another. Whoever did this had to have another way out of there.
Right.
Another car, somebody followed them and picked them up. So again, that's what I was interested to know, if the keys were in her car. If he was forced to drive her own car, then either somebody was with her and then left on foot, or somebody had to come and pick them up. That's the only two ways I think that they could have gotten out of it. They either left on foot after they did it, or somebody came and picked them up, or they hitchhiked or something. They got to ride out of there, unless they lived in the area.
That's
I'm sure Hanover looked into that as well.
And
That's
it
another
would
possibility.
have to be somebody familiar with the area, because you can literally go down 54, Route 54, where the Sunoco is, and continue straight and turn on Greenwood Church Road, and then Wesley's Court Road is maybe a half a mile on the right. So they could have ended up walking back to the Sunoco in the truck stop if need be.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
now and we've got And we've got plenty of clairvoyants that tune in and listen to us. So if anybody gets any clues or any information, or if they feel anything or use your intuition, please PM me. I mean, we would love to have some clues with this. As far as the astrology chart went, it was an older person. And, the chart specific really looks as though she knew this person. It looked like there was some kind of a connection, and I'm gonna dig in and study it a little bit more. But it seemed like she knew this person, and it almost would have been on a romantic type level. But we don't know. But it was an older person, so it's like Carrie said. What happened at the Sunoco? Did she leave? Was somebody was following her to help her move? We don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but that's super interesting. Super. That's a tough one.
I like who they talked to that actually put her there, or whether they checked the card. If you got gas to keep the card, they could have checked that one. I don't know about cameras. 98, they were sort of becoming a thing to do, so I don't know whether they would have had any closed circuit cameras back there or not. But somebody placed her there. I mean, whether they talked to somebody at the Sunoco and said, "You ever see this girl?" They said, "Yeah, we saw her at 3:00 or whatever time it was."
Right.
Or whether they traced the charge, off the charge card. So that would be where I would like to start. Try to find something that took place at the Sunoco to give us some kind of clue.
I'll bet she was with somebody. I just have a feeling. I just think she would have been with somebody, or somebody was following her, or maybe she had a guy that was following her. Or somebody followed her out of the gas station. It's a crazy case. It's a sad case because there aren't any clues. There's not much of anything to go on. So, but our hour is almost up, you guys. I mean, this goes by so fast when Harry is on the show because of his expertise and his knowledge, and just you give us so much insight. Like I said, we're always like, oh, law enforcement and this and that, but it's really great.
I told you he's a superhero.
Has the knowledge that you do, Harry. Thank you so much. And Harry, what is your book? Where can people find your tell us about the books and your information.
Well, one book is out there on Amazon, or you can just Google me, Harry Boyd. The book is called Shadows at Inverness. It's sort of a mystery suspense novel thing set in the 10th century Scotland. It was a lot of fun. I certainly didn't get rich, but I got a lot more mileage out of that thing than I ever expected to. It's been well received, much more so than I ever thought. So that's out there. I've got another book that's coming out. It's the sequel to this one, actually. That is it's in the final stages of editing at the moment. So hopefully that'll come out here very shortly. So then the third is a trilogy. So the third one is partly in my computer and partly in my head at this point. So that's that there. But the book is called Shadows at Inverness.
Shadows.
So if anybody would like to Google that, it's on Amazon. It's on Kindle too. I think you can download it for a couple of bucks on Kindle.
So do you have a website associated with it, or do people just Google you? And
just Google me. That's the easiest way to do it. Just Google me, or just Google Shadows and Inverness, or go to Amazon and Google me at Amazon. But it'll pop up if you just put my name in there.
So why Scotland?
I got the awesome
Why
book,
Scotland?
Spectres at the End.
Well, Scotland. I'm a big Shakespeare fan, and so
Really?
this book is multi-layered. Okay, basically, I'm trying to enlighten the general public without them knowing they're being enlightened. So I put this sort of in a mystery suspense, sort of otherworldly kind of vibe. And Macbeth is my most favorite play, which of course is set in Scotland. And so that's always been a fascination of mine. So I just set the book in 10th century Scotland. and there's some Shakespearean characters that show up in there. But it was a lot of fun to write, and like I say, I've gotten far more response from it than I ever expected. So I'm very grateful for that.
Is it a thriller? What I mean, is it? Give us a little insight on what it's. I mean, just a little tad insight. You don't have to spoil the story, but
Well, I don't know if basically it's about this. It's about a monk who gets caught up in the civil war that results after Macbeth kills the king of Scotland, who is Duncan, and then Macbeth assumes the throne in the country. And this is all history. The Scotland descended into civil war, so this monk gets taken out of his monastery by Macbeth to find a text that Macbeth thinks has magical powers and will give him the capability to stay king forever and destroy all of his enemies. And as he goes about trying to find the text, he's exposed to many things that he never thought he would come in contact with. And so it's sort of a coming-of-age story, sort of an adventure story. One of the cool things about it is I took some of my police experiences that I had on the road and put them into the 10th century Scotland. So a lot of the things that the main character goes through actually happened to me out there in the police world. So that's kind of fun too. So
well, when you get the second, correct? The second one is ready to come out.
It's coming out very soon. Yeah.
Well, will you come back and talk to us about it and talk about the book with us? We would love to have you back.
Absolutely. I will gladly come anytime you invite me. It's been incredibly enjoyable, and I always appreciate the opportunity. And it's great to talk to you, ladies. So thank you for letting me spend the evening with you.
Well,
and all your guests as well.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for everything. And Miss Sheri Lynn, where can people find you?
Monday nights on Haunted Tales from the Old Rocking Chair, and Tuesday nights here with you and our other host, Christy, who's not here this evening. And then the last Saturday of the month, you, when we raise Cain on Rift Nation.
Raising Cain. Well,
I figured before we wrap it up, just if anybody's got tips on either case, Crime Stop, 804-780-1000. Please.
Thank you, ma'am. And Harry, thank you again, hon. And everybody, thank you for listening. Have a great week. And we will see you guys next week.
This has been a Rick Radio Podcast presentation. Catch all the shows throughout the week. Sunday, your line text. Monday, on a Tales from the Old Rocking Chair. Tuesday, True Crime, Mysteries Behind the Veil. And on Wednesdays at this time, evenings with Dr. Mitchell, with Saturdays set aside for weekend.
Good night.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Good night, all. Thank you.